You know, they're one of the most famous teams in all of sports, playing under the brightest lights in the world. But the story of the New York Rangers is way more than just a hockey game. It's a century-long saga of pure glory, absolute heartbreak, and some unforgettable drama. All right, let's get into it. It all starts right here, with this shield. It's simple, it's classic, and you know it the second you see it. For pretty much 100 years, this logo has been the face of professional hockey right in the heart of New York City, a real symbol of tradition and, resilience. And that tradition? Oh, it runs deep. The Rangers are one of the NHL's legendary original 6 teams. These were the foundational franchises, the ones that basically built the league we know and love today. So yeah, they're pretty much hockey royalty. So that really brings us to the big question, right? How did this team, a team born in the middle of the Jazz Age, weave itself so deeply into the very fabric of New York City? Well, the answer is a wild story of incredible highs and, believe me, some unbelievable lows. So let's rewind. We're going to go all the way back to where it all began, the birth of the Blue Shirts. Okay, so meet George Louis Tex Rickard. This guy was the president in Madison Square Garden, and back in 1926, he looked at the city's first hockey team, the New York Americans, and thought, you know what? They need some competition. So he just decided to start a second team to play in his own arena. And here's a little fun fact for you. The team got its name almost by accident. A local sports editor, just kind of joking around, started calling the new club Texas Rangers. And the nickname was so perfect, so popular, that it just stuck. And just like that, it became their official name. But what really cemented their identity was where they played. Their home ice at the old Madison Square Garden was just a stone's throw from the theater district, so they quickly became a huge part of the city's nightlife, which earned them their most famous nickname, the Broadway Blue Shirts. And with this new identity, it didn't take long for them to hit their first golden age. We're talking about an era of some serious early glory.
And they did not waste any time. The Rangers absolutely exploded onto the scene, winning 3 Stanley Cups in their first 14 seasons. They won in 1928, becoming the fastest expansion team to ever win the Cup, a record, by the way. They won again in 33, and then a third time in 1940. They weren't just good, they were a legit dynasty.
But that first championship in 1928, oh man, it almost didn't happen. During the Stanley Cup final, their starting goalie, Lauren Chabot, took a puck straight to the eye and had to leave the game. And you have to remember, back then, teams didn't have backup goalies. Not a thing. So just imagine that. You're in the middle of the most important game of your life, and you have no one, literally no one, to play goal. So who on earth would step in? Their coach, I'm not kidding, their 44-year-old coach, Lester Patrick, literally put on the pads himself, stepped between the pipes for 2 whole periods, and led them to an overtime win. It's truly one of the most incredible, you-can't-make-this-up moments in all of sports history. But after that unbelievable start, the story takes a sharp, dramatic turn. This brings us to the 54-year championship drought. 54. Just let that number sink in for a second. For more than half a century, that number absolutely haunted the franchise and its fans. 54 straight years without a single championship. I mean, the sheer length of that wait is just staggering. It stretched from the height of World War II all the way to the dawn of the internet age. An entire generation of fans lived and died without ever seeing their team lift the Stanley Cup. And it wasn't for a lack of trying. People talked about a curse, supposedly sworn by a rival owner. And there were so many agonizingly close calls. A Game 7 overtime loss in 1950, 3 more trips to the finals, all of them ending in defeat. The frustration was just immense. Which brings us to the moment that everything, and I mean everything, changed. The 1994 miracle season. To break a curse like that, you need a hero. So the Rangers went out and got one. They acquired Mark Messier, the captain, the guy who had led the Edmonton Oilers to 5 Stanley Cups. He was brought to New York with one single solitary mission: do it again. And this is where the legend was truly born. It's 1994, conference finals. They're down 3-2 in the series against their bitter rivals, the New Jersey Devils. And what does Messier do? He does something totally unprecedented. He guarantees a victory to the press. He just says, "We'll win tonight."
And then he went out and backed it up. He scores a hat trick in the third period to win Game 6. Then they win the series in a heart-stopping double overtime Game 7. And then, in yet another Game 7 in the Stanley Cup final, who else but Marc Messier scores the game-winning and the championship-winning goal. The 54-year wait was finally over.
But of course, this story doesn't end in 1994. The challenge then became, okay, how do you build a new legacy? And that brings us to the modern era of the Rangers.
After '94, the Rangers kept attracting superstars. I mean, the great one, Wayne Gretzky, famously came to New York to finish his career. But the next true era, well, it was defined by a king. Goaltender Henrik Lundqvist became the face of the franchise for 15 years, and at times it felt like he was single-handedly carrying the team back to contention.
You know, this modern era has really been a cycle of highs and lows. Led by King Henrik, they made a thrilling run back to the Stanley Cup final in 2014. But after years of playoff contention, the team made a really bold move, announcing a full rebuild in 2018. And that tough process, it paid off. It led to the arrival of new superstars, and it all culminated in the 2024 President's Trophy for the league's best record, signaling that a new era of dominance was here.
And today, it's players like Artemi Panarin leading the charge, carrying that legacy of the Broadway blue shirts forward for a whole new generation of fans. So when you think about it, from Tex Rickard's gamble to Marc Messier's guarantee, from a 44-year-old coach playing goalie to a 54-year curse, the Rangers' story is every bit as dramatic as any show on Broadway. It really just leaves us with one final thought. After nearly 100 years on the world's biggest stage, what on earth will the next act bring?